Return of the Mount Hua Sect, Chapter 159. Now let's go catch the Wudang bastards. You didn't even run that far to be gasping so much. This is why I said you people should train more on a regular basis. You aren't even human. That bastard has no conscience. Asshole. Who doesn't even let their sayongs have some rest? I really want to hit him. The disciples of Mount Hua were running at their best speed, and Cheongmyeong, instead of being ahead, was behind them with his sword drawn. Looking at his greedy eyes and his sword stained with blood, the group couldn't help but run fast. Even if their legs fell off, they had to run away from him. This bastard is scarier than those bats. I'd rather be happy if the Wudang sect bastards were here. Even Jogul, who had the most strength among the people, began to have a hard time. He couldn't say anything apart from that. He was trying his best to run, but his saje was saying they were weak. Where did the common sense that people kept talking about go? It hurts! Bastard! That hurts! Run! Run! Cheongmyeong kept poking Jogul in the ass with his sword. The bastards there are probably trying to take away my things. Do you all have a death wish or something? Even the sun doesn't shine here. Don't keep hitting that, you sword-wielding brat. Unfortunately, they were all underground, so there was no light in here. And even sadder than that was the fact that there was Cheongmyeong behind them, and Jogul was moving back and forth, enduring the constant stabs to his behind. I might die at this rate. With that thought of dying, scream more and run faster. Cheongmyeong's eyes were shining. He had every reason to urge them. Those bastards aren't moving anymore. Which meant that the end was near. And that meant that there had to be the pill there. He went through all sorts of things to come here, so he didn't want to see someone else to just take the thing and leave. How dare the Wudang bastards touch my stuff? They aren't even yours to begin with. Not even a scammer will live like this. But what could they do? This guy is the disciple of Mount Hua and the cute saje for the Sasuks and elders. And they weren't the only ones suffering because of Cheongmyeong. Mount Hua's divine dragon! A desperate voice came from behind. Yeah, you bastard! Let's go together! You were with us till now, so why are you running ahead now? What, Mr. Beggar? Cheongmyeong snorted. Run! Run faster! We can't, you bastard! We're beggars! We beggars can't! Seriously, you guys do act like beggars. Hongdae-gwang's eyes filled with tears at the words of Cheongmyeong. After this task is done, I won't ever lose to Mount Hua, you damn bastard. But unfortunately, it wasn't over yet. Beggars, run! After them! Branch leader, you should move first. We cannot. How dare you ask me to go first? Run faster! Not. Branch leader, please, I'd rather die. God damn it, how can you act like an old person? Those people are the same age as you, and they are running like that. Just shut up and run. This is a matter of pride for the Beggars Union. Begging should be the only thing we are good at. Yeah! Hongdae-gwang bit his teeth and kicked the beggar who was in front of him. Why are you hitting me? The beggar who was kicked turned back and asked in rage. This doesn't seem right. Why am I not able to be like Cheongmyeong? Realizing that bullying people wasn't an easy thing to do, Hongdae-gwang pushed the beggar ahead. Yeah, Mount Hua's divine dragon! Wait! Ignoring Hongdae-gwang's screams, Cheongmyeong just didn't care and kept running. If he missed this pill, he was going to beat the shit out of the beggars. It was obvious that if he lost the pills, then he wouldn't be able to relieve his anger even after hitting the beggars for 3 or 4 days. The exit! Light! Ah! Shouts of joy erupted from the mouth of Mount Hua's disciples. Of course, it wasn't the joy of finding what they were aiming for, but because they would finally be able to get away from this damn torture. Light! Jogul, who took the lead, was panting heavily as he looked at the exit, And then he looked ahead and became shocked. What is this? He saw a huge cliff to the top and people climbing it. The moment they saw that Jogul's eyes trembled, Baekchun and Yoonjung, who were next to him, had similar reactions. What am I seeing? It looks like a cliff, right? A strange light shone in the eyes of Mount Hua's disciples who were looking at the cliff. It wasn't because they saw the Wudang disciples who were halfway up the cliff. That is a cliff! A cliff! What? Cliff? Chungmyeong, who came from behind, looked at the cliff. Up there! His fingers pointed to the protruding part in the middle of the cliff. It looked like it was far, but it must have been a space where around 100 people could climb simultaneously. You mean for us to go up there? 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 Jogul, who was staring blankly at the cliff, tilted his head and said, What? His lips were slowly curving upwards. What? Why is it so bland in the end? To climb a cliff? To see this in the last minute? Maybe this wasn't in vain. Moisture filled the eyes of Yoonjung. They were tears. A cliff? A cliff here? This has to be a joke. There was no one who could climb a cliff like the second and third class disciples of Mount Hua. Thanks to the training of the beast, they would climb the cliffs of Mount Hua 5 times or more in a single day. At this point, they were so familiar with climbing cliffs that they would sometimes doze off when walking up the cliff and even climb the cliff after eating. Every time they had gone through the training, they had sworn at Chungmyeong, but for the training, which seemed like the most useless one, for that to shine in this place. Of course, everyone was shaking. Let's go! Yaksu must have never come to Mount Hua. This level is too easy for us. The disciples of Mount Hua ran as hard as they could without even waiting for Chungmyeong's words and went for the cliff. Those who hadn't yet dared to climb the cliff quickly turned their gazes to the disciples of Mount Hua who appeared out of nowhere. And... What? How? So fast? As if crawling on the floor, they were scaling up the cliff. No. Everyone gasped as they saw the disciples of Mount Hua climbing the cliff faster than them. No, are they spiders or what? To climb a cliff like that? They were surprised at the speed at which the climbing happened. It was just a matter of strength and familiarity, but the onlookers knew nothing about that. In their view, the disciples of Mount Hua who were climbing the cliff much faster than them looked outrageous. And what was even surprising was that it wasn't just one person with such speed, but rather all 5 of them. Even though they knew they didn't have time to feel the shock, they couldn't take their eyes off them. Stop! It was only then that the people came to their senses and glared at the disciples of Mount Hua. Throw something at them! Put a sword through their backs! Those who didn't have the ability to climb the cliff couldn't give up. So they began to throw their weapons at the disciples who were climbing up. And of course, the disciples of Mount Hua didn't stop. Puck! Jogul's eyes bulged out when he saw the sword narrowly pass by his cheek. No! Humans are seriously the most horrible ones. Did they mean that other people shouldn't climb the cliff because they themselves couldn't? Still, throwing a sword was too much. Don't worry and keep going up. They keep throwing swords and knives. I'll stop it. Just go. How can you stop all of them? It was then. Ya! You bastards! Don't you dare touch Mount Hua! Hong Dae-gwang, who arrived late, quickly grasped the situation and smashed the attacks to the ground. Damn all these bastards! Mount Hua's divine dragon! Don't worry and go up! Chungmyeong clicked his tongue. Pretending to act like you're doing something great. Anyway, at least do it right this time. The fact there was no obstruction increased their speed even more. Jogul hurriedly moved his body. Compared to the other things we had to face, this is like a breeze. They weren't just empty words. The disciples of Mount Hua had already caught up to the ones who were climbing the cliff first, and they had begun to surpass them. In the middle, the weapons that flew from below were all being bounced off by Chongmyung's sword. Each time he blocked one, he would yell, "Pill! Internal key! My pill!" My appetite is falling. Let's just go up quickly. I don't know what that crazy brat would do if someone else puts their hands on the pill. Trembling in fear, the disciples of Mount Hua diligently moved up faster. Elder! Over there! Huh? Hua Sanja opened his eyes wide. A group of warriors were chasing behind them with a formidable force. Their speed in climbing the cliff resembled the swiftness of a group of monkeys. No, not even monkeys could climb this well, so these people should be considered as something more. Mount Hua is the disciples of Mount Hua, Elder. Hua Sanja grunted at the words of Jinhyun. It's them. The people who made the current situation for them were here. Considering that fact, he couldn't help but be enraged. But what he had to worry about more wasn't his anger at Mount Hua, but the speed at which they were climbing. How did this happen? No matter how strong they were, there should be a clear limit to their strength, considering the age gap. Then what about their climbing? Just how were they climbing this fast? It was something that he couldn't understand. Whatever the reason for it was actually happening right in front of his eyes. Hogong. Yes, Sayong. Take the children up. I will head there first. Yes. Hua Sanja smashed his hand into the cliff and used that to climb up. Boom. His body began to soar up as he felt ki under his feet. That! Someone screamed from below. When the body of a Wudang disciple reached the peak of their learning, they were known to be able to lift more than a dozen people into the air. Of course, climbing such a high cliff at once was unreasonable, but if he did this from the middle of the cliff, then Hua Sanja could reach the top of the cliff before others did. I'm gonna go ahead first. Chongmyung, what are you doing, brat? Even if it means death, I will eat it. Chongmyung's eyes were covered in greed, and the disciples of Mount Hua who saw that went silent. Chongmyung took off his footwear and began to run up the cliff. Shit! He's running? Chongmyung's feet touched the flat ground, and at the same time, his body bounced up at a terrifying speed. Ah! Although the start was late, the speed at which Chongmyung ran up the cliff was faster than how Hua Sanja climbed the cliff. That young one! Just who is that young one? Who? You are the young one. Do you know how old I am? I feel so frustrated. You won't believe it even if I tell you. Being young must be fun. The two people were climbing the cliff at an insane speed, as if they were competing with each other. Chongmyung had used the recoil from the landing to keep moving up, and Hua Sanja was shooting into the air and flying upwards as he used the rocks on the cliff's edges as a foothold. Hua Sanja and Chongmyung rose up at the same time from the edge of the cliff and reached the gap they were aiming for simultaneously.